The Valka conclave came from the heart of the galaxy. They were 7 species united under one purpose. They were the guardians, the judges, the ones who decided which civilizations lived and which died. Their fleet was vast. Hundreds of ships, each one built for a single purpose, enforcing their laws. High Arbiter Thalos stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked down at Earth. It was a small world, blue and green and white. It looked peaceful from here. He had seen a dozen worlds like this. He had judged them all. Some were allowed to continue. Some were reduced to protectorates. Some were erased from existence. He expected Earth to be like the others. Routine. The humans were young. They had only reached for the stars a few hundred years ago. They were reckless. They expanded too quickly. They built weapons that the Conclave considered dangerous. They had broken the rules. Thalos would tell them their fate. They would accept it. They always did. The Valka fleet took position in high orbit. Their scanners swept across the planet below. They catalogued everything. Nuclear weapons in silos beneath the ground. Missile batteries hidden in mountains. Warships docked in coastal cities. Thalos studied the reports and felt nothing. Primitive weapons for a primitive species. They would be easy to control. But then his chief science officer approached. Scientist Vel was a small creature, nervous by nature, but his mind was sharp. He carried a data slate in his trembling hands. His eyes were wide. "High Arbiter," Vel said. "There is something you must see." Thalos took the slate. He studied the readings. His expression did not change, but something in his eyes grew still. "What am I looking at?" he asked. Vel pointed at the screen. "These are energy signatures. Deep beneath the surface. Under mountains. Beneath oceans. Buried in deserts. They do not match anything in our databases. They are not human technology. They are older. Much older." Thalos looked at the locations. They were scattered across the planet. Some were in places where humans had built their oldest cities. Some were in places where no human had ever lived. Whoever had buried these things, they had done so with great care. And the humans had found them. "Can you penetrate their shielding?" Thalos asked. Vel shook his head. "No, High Arbiter. Whatever is down there, it is shielded with technology far beyond our own. We cannot see inside. But the energy readings are concerning." Thalos studied the data for a long moment. He had judged a dozen species. He had never encountered anything like this. A primitive species hiding technology that was older than their own civilization. Technology that was more advanced than anything the Valka possessed. He made a decision. He would not judge humanity based on what they showed the galaxy. He would judge them based on what they hid. He opened a channel to the surface. "People of Earth. This is High Arbiter Thalos of the Valka Conclave. You have hidden things from us. Things that do not belong to you. Things that are older than your species. You have 24 hours to reveal what you have found. If you do not, we will uncover it ourselves. And you will not like what happens next." The transmission ended. On Earth, panic spread. The governments of the world knew exactly what the Valka had found. They had been hiding it for centuries. Passing the secret from one generation to the next. Building cities on top of it. Building weapons to protect it. Waiting for the day when someone would come looking. In a bunker beneath the mountains of Switzerland, the leaders of Earth's most powerful nations gathered. Their faces were pale. Their hands were shaking. They had known this day would come. They had hoped it would not come in their lifetime. "What do we do?" one of them asked. The room was silent. No one had an answer. They had spent centuries hiding the secret. They had spent centuries studying it. They had spent centuries preparing for the moment when they would have to reveal it. But now that the moment was here, none of them wanted to speak. Finally, an old woman stood. Her name was Admiral Elena Cross. She was the keeper of the secret, the one who had spent her life protecting what lay beneath the earth. "We show them," she said. "We show them what we found. We show them what we built. And we show them why they should be very, very careful about what they do next." The room stared at her. She stared back. Her eyes were hard. Her voice was calm. She had been waiting for this moment her whole life. She was ready. "Send the signal," she said. "Tell the Valka we accept their deadline. Tell them we will show them what we are hiding. And tell them to bring their best scanners. Because they are going to want to see this clearly." The message was sent. In orbit, Thalos received it. He read it twice. He did not understand what the humans meant, but he felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt curious. And beneath the curiosity, buried deep where no one could see it, he felt something else. Something that felt very much like fear. The 24 hours passed slowly. High Arbiter Thalos stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the blue world below. His fleet was ready. Weapons charged. Shields up. Scanners sweeping. He had given the humans a chance to reveal their secret. Now he waited to see what they would do. He expected many things. He expected them to beg. He expected them to fight. He expected them to try to run. He had seen it all before. Weaker species always reacted the same way when faced with the Valka conclave. Fear. Desperation. Surrender. He did not expect what came next. A single ship rose from the surface of Earth. It was not like the other human ships the Valka had scanned. Those ships were small. Simple. Built for short journeys and light combat. This ship was different. It was old. Its hull was scarred with marks that looked like nothing the Valka had ever seen. Its design was strange. Angular. Sharp. Built for purposes that were not immediately clear. It moved slowly, deliberately, cutting through the void toward the Valka flagship. Thalos leaned forward. "Focus all scanners on that vessel," he ordered. "I want to know everything about it before it arrives." Scientist Vel nodded. His hands moved across his console. The Valka scanners were the most advanced in the galaxy. They could penetrate any hull. They could map any system. They could find any weakness. Vel turned them on the human ship and prepared to learn its secrets. The scanners reached out. They touched the human vessel. They pierced its hull. They mapped its interior. And then everything changed. Vel stared at his screen. His hands stopped moving. His mouth fell open. Around him, other science officers were having the same reaction. The bridge fell silent. No one spoke. No one moved. They simply stared at their readings in disbelief. Thalos frowned. "Report," he commanded. Vel turned to face him. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. "High Arbiter," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "This ship is not human. It is not from any species we know. The hull material does not exist in any database. The power core generates energy that should be impossible. The weapons systems operate on principles we have never imagined." Thalos felt a cold weight settle in his chest. "What are you saying?" Vel looked back at his screen. His voice dropped even lower. "Deep within the ship, buried in its core, there is a device. We cannot fully understand it, but we can see its purpose. It is a weapon. A weapon designed to destroy not ships, not planets, not stars. It is designed to destroy the space between them, to tear holes in reality, to erase entire systems from existence." The bridge went silent again. Thalos stared at the human ship on his main screen. It was small. It was old. It was scarred. And it carried a weapon that could end worlds. "Where did they get it?" Thalos asked. His voice was steady, but his hands were clenched behind his back. Vel shook his head. "They did not get it, High Arbiter. They built it. The design is theirs. The technology is theirs. They found something. Something even older. Something buried on their world for millions of years. They studied it. They learned from it. And they improved it." Thalos felt the cold weight in his chest grow heavier. The humans had found something ancient. Something powerful. Something that should have stayed buried. And instead of destroying it, instead of hiding from it, they had studied it. They had learned from it. They had made it their own. The human ship continued its approach. It did not fire. It did not threaten. It simply moved toward the Valka flagship, silent and patient. A single ship against a fleet of hundreds. And yet, on the bridge of the Valka flagship, no one felt safe. A transmission came through. The main screen flickered. A human face appeared. She was a woman. Older. Gray hair pulled back from a face that had seen too much. Her eyes were sharp. Her uniform was simple. Her voice was calm. "I am Admiral Elena Cross of the United Earth Defense Force. I understand you wanted to see what we were hiding. Now you have seen it." She paused. Her eyes seemed to look directly at Thalos. Directly through him. "Would you like to see more?" The question hung in the air. Thalos stared at the human woman on his screen. He thought about the ship she had sent. The weapon it carried. The power it represented. And he thought about what she had said. "Would you like to see more?" He looked at Vel. The scientist was still pale. Still shaking. He looked at his other officers. They were afraid. He could see it in their eyes. They had come to judge a primitive species. They had found something else. Something that should not exist. Something that should not be possible. Thalos looked back at Admiral Cross. He opened his mouth to speak. But for the first time in his long life, he did not know what to say. The humans had shown him their secret, and now he understood. They were not hiding because they were afraid. They were hiding because they were waiting. Waiting for someone to come. Waiting for someone to push. Waiting for someone to make them show what they had built. He looked at the small, scared ship on his screen. And for the first time in his long life, High Arbiter Thalos of the Valka Conclave felt something he had never felt before. He felt fear. Admiral Cross's words hung in the air like a blade waiting to fall. The bridge of the Valka flagship was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. High Arbiter Thalos stared at the human woman on his screen. He had judged a dozen species. He had never faced one that offered its secrets so freely. He had never faced one that smiled while doing it. "More?" he asked. His voice was steady, but his hands were clenched at his sides. "What do you mean, more?" Cross smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Someone who had spent her life preparing for this conversation. Someone who knew exactly what she was doing. "You scanned our ship. You saw what it can do. But you only saw one. There are hundreds more. Hidden across our solar system. Hidden in the void between stars. Hidden in places you have not thought to look. We have been building them for 1,000 years. Ever since we found the first one." Thalos leaned forward. His eyes narrowed. "The first one? What did you find?" Cross paused. Her eyes grew distant, as if she was looking at something far away. Something that no one else could see. 1,000 years ago, before we had electricity, before we had steam engines, before we had gunpowder, our ancestors found something buried in the desert. A ship. Not ours. Not from any species we had ever imagined. It was old. So old that the metal had turned to dust in some places. But its core was still intact. Still humming with power. Still waiting. She looked back at Thalos. Her eyes were sharp again. "We did not understand it. We could not even scratch its surface. But we studied it. For 1,000 years, we studied it. Generation after generation. Fathers taught sons. Mothers taught daughters. We built universities around it. We built cities on top of it. We protected it. And slowly, piece by piece, we began to understand." Scientist Vel spoke up. His voice was trembling. "What did you learn?" Cross looked at him. Her face was hard. Her voice was calm. "We learned its language. We learned its science. We learned its purpose. And we learned what destroyed the civilization that built it." The bridge was silent. Even the hum of the engines seemed to fade. Vel swallowed. "What destroyed them?" Cross did not look away. "They did. They built weapons that could unmake reality. They fought a war that lasted 10,000 years. And when it was over, nothing was left. No worlds. No stars. Just dust and silence. They destroyed themselves. Everything they had built. Everything they had achieved. Gone." She paused. Her voice dropped. "We found one of their ships. One of the few that survived. And we learned from it. We learned what they did wrong. And we built something better." Thalos stared at her. His mind was racing. A civilization that had built weapons to unmake reality. A war that had lasted 10,000 years. And the humans, these primitive humans, had found the remains of that civilization. Had studied it. Had learned from it. Had built their own weapons from the knowledge they gained. "What did you build?" he asked. His voice was quiet. Cross leaned forward. Her face filled the screen. "You came here to judge us. To decide if we are worthy to exist. You looked at our nuclear weapons and our missiles and you thought we were primitive. You were wrong. Those are not our weapons. Those are our toys. The things we let our children play with. The things we show the galaxy so they do not ask what we are hiding." Her eyes grew cold. "Our real weapons are the ones we have been hiding. The ones we built to make sure we never make the same mistake as the civilization that came before us. We have weapons that can tear holes in reality. Weapons that can erase star systems. Weapons that can end wars before they begin. We have had them for centuries. We have never used them. Because we are not like the ones who came before. We learned from their mistakes." Thalos felt the cold weight in his chest grow heavier. "What mistake?" Cross's voice dropped to a whisper. But in the silence of the bridge, it sounded like thunder. "They fought when they did not have to. They destroyed when they could have talked. They chose war when peace was still possible. We will not make that choice. We will never make that choice. But if someone forces us to fight, we will not lose. We have the weapons to end any war, any species. Any galaxy. She leaned back. Her face softened. But her eyes did not. So judge us, High Arbiter. Decide if we are worthy. Decide if we should live or die. You have judged a dozen species before us. You know how it works. You give your verdict. We accept our fate. That is how it always goes. She paused. Her smile returned. But it was different now. It was not friendly. It was not cruel. It was the smile of someone who knew something the other person did not. But know this. If you decide against us, we will not beg. We will not surrender. We will not accept our fate. We will simply show you the rest of what we have been hiding. All of it. Everything we built. Everything we learned. Everything we have been waiting to use. And then we will see who survives. She looked directly into Thalos's eyes. Her voice was soft. Her words were not. Choose carefully, High Arbiter. Because this is not a judgment. This is a question. And how you answer will determine everything. The Valkyr fleet hung in orbit around Earth. Silent. Uncertain. The ships that had come to judge now waited to be judged themselves. High Arbiter Thalos stood in the council chamber of his flagship, surrounded by the leaders of the 7 species that made up the conclave. They had come here to decide the fate of humanity. Now they could not decide anything at all. Some demanded war. The humans are too dangerous, said the representative from the Kthan. They have weapons that can destroy star systems. They must be stopped before they use them. Some demanded submission. We cannot fight them, said the representative from the Vel. Their technology is beyond us. We must accept their dominance and hope for mercy. Some demanded retreat. We should leave, said the representative from the Thal. Forget we ever came here. Pretend this never happened. The humans want to be left alone. Let us leave them alone. Thalos listened to them all. He said nothing. He waited. Scientist Vel stepped forward. His voice was quiet, but the council fell silent when he spoke. He had studied the human ship. He had studied the readings. He had studied the data. And what he had found had changed him. He was no longer the nervous scientist who had scanned a primitive world. He was something else. Someone who had seen the truth. The human ship is not unique, he said. There are hundreds more, hidden across their solar system, hidden in the void between stars, hidden in places we did not think to look. Each one carries a weapon that could destroy a star system. Each one is controlled by a crew that has trained their entire lives for a war that has not come. The council shifted in their seats. They had heard this before. But Vel was not finished. That is not what frightens me, he said. What frightens me is what I found when I looked deeper. The humans did not stop with the weapons. They studied the ancient civilization. They learned why it fell. And they built something to prevent the same thing from happening to them. He activated a holographic display. A map of Earth appeared. But it was not a map of cities and countries. It was a map of connections. Lines of light stretched across the planet, connecting every human to every other human. A network. A living, breathing network that spanned their entire species. This is what they built, Vel said. A network. If anyone attacks them, if anyone threatens their existence, the network activates. Every human becomes a weapon. Every human becomes a soldier. Every human becomes something that cannot be defeated. The council stared at the display. The lines of light pulsed like a heartbeat. A billion hearts beating as one. Thalos frowned. How do you defeat a species that turns every individual into a weapon? Vel shook his head. His voice was barely a whisper. You do not. You cannot. They have prepared for a war that will never come. They have built for a threat that does not exist. They are the most dangerous species in the galaxy not because they want to be, but because they are afraid. They are so afraid of extinction that they have made themselves impossible to destroy. The council fell silent. No one demanded war. No one demanded submission. No one demanded retreat. They simply sat in their seats and stared at the map of a species that had turned fear into the ultimate weapon. Thalos rose. I will speak to the human again. He opened a channel to Admiral Cross. Her face appeared on the screen. She looked at him with calm, patient eyes. She did not seem surprised. She did not seem triumphant. She simply waited. You have made your point, Thalos said. His voice was steady, but there was something in it that had not been there before. Respect. You have shown us your weapons. You have shown us your network. You have shown us that you are not a species to be threatened. But I must know. What do you want? What do you want from the galaxy? From us? Cross was silent for a moment. Her eyes moved across the bridge, looking at the council members, at the officers, at the fleet that hung in the void behind them. Then she spoke. We want to be left alone. We want to build our worlds. We want to raise our children. We want to explore the stars and learn what is out there. We do not want to fight. We have never wanted to fight. But we have learned, over 1,000 years, that the galaxy is full of species who see peace as weakness. Her voice hardened. We are not weak. We are patient. We are prepared. And we are waiting for the day when the galaxy understands that peace is the only option. The day when no species looks at another and sees a target. The day when strength is measured not in weapons, but in restraint. We have been waiting for that day for 1,000 years. We will wait 1,000 more if we have to. She looked at Thalos. Her eyes held centuries of history. Centuries of fear. Centuries of hope. You came here to judge us. You have seen what we are hiding. Now you must decide. Will you be our enemies? Or will you be our neighbors? The choice is yours. But choose carefully, because if you choose wrong, you will not get a second chance. The screen went dark. The council sat in silence. Thalos looked at the empty screen and thought about what she had said. Peace was the only option. Strength was measured in restraint. They had come to judge humanity. But in the end, humanity had judged them. And they had found the Valkyr wanting. He turned to the council. I have made my decision, he said. We will not fight. We will not submit. We will leave. And we will never return. The humans want to be left alone. We will leave them alone. And we will tell the galaxy what we found here. We will tell them that there is a species in the galaxy that has built weapons to end worlds. A species that has turned fear into strength. A species that does not want to fight, but is ready for anything. And we will tell them to leave Earth alone. Because if they do not, they will not survive. The council did not argue. They had seen the truth. And they understood. The Valkyr fleet departed Earth 3 days later. They did not attack. They did not demand submission. They did not leave behind threats or promises of return. They simply turned their ships toward the stars and left. Their weapons were cold. Their scanners were dark. They moved in silence, like a fleet that had seen something it could not forget. High Arbiter Thalos stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched Earth shrink behind him. The blue and green world grew smaller and smaller until it was just a speck of light among a million others. He had come here to judge humanity. He was leaving with a different understanding. Not of humanity. Of himself. Of the conclave. Of everything they thought they knew about power. Before he left the system, he sent a message. It went to every species in the Valkyr conclave. Every leader. Every council. Every being who had ever looked at a weaker species and seen a target. The message was short. But its words would echo across the galaxy for generations. There is a species in the galaxy that has built weapons that can end worlds. They have hidden these weapons for centuries. Not because they want to use them, but because they are afraid. They are afraid of extinction. They are afraid of being erased. And that fear has made them the most dangerous species in existence. Do not threaten them. Do not push them. Do not make them afraid. Because if you do, they will show you what they have been hiding. And you will not survive. He sent the message. Then he closed his eyes and rested. He had done his duty. He had warned his people. What they did with the warning was up to them. On Earth, Admiral Elena Cross stood on a hill overlooking the ocean. The Valkyr ships were gone. The sky was clear. The sun was setting. It was a beautiful evening. She felt no victory. No triumph. The secret was out. The weapons were revealed. The galaxy knew what humanity was capable of. And for now, that was enough. But it would not always be enough. Others would come. Others would test. Others would push. They always did. She turned to her officers. They stood behind her in silence, waiting for her orders. They were young. Most of them had been born after the Valkyr fleet was already on its way. They had trained their whole lives for a war that had not come. They would train their children. And their children's children. They would keep building. Keep hiding. Keep waiting. The Valkyr are gone, Cross said. But others will come. They always come. We must be ready. We must always be ready. Her officers nodded. They knew their duty. They had always known. They turned and walked back to the bunkers beneath the hill. The bunkers where the weapons waited. The ships waited. The network waited. Everything waited. Cross stood alone on the hill and watched the sun sink below the horizon. She thought about the ancient civilization that had built the ship her ancestors found in the desert. She thought about their 10,000-year war. She thought about the silence that followed. She thought about the fear that had driven them to destroy themselves. And she thought about the fear that drove humanity to build weapons they hoped they would never use. She wondered if they were any different. She wondered if any species was any different. She wondered if fear would always lead to the same place. To weapons. To hiding. To waiting for a war that might never come. She did not know. But she knew one thing. She would not let her species make the same mistake as the ones who came before. They would not fight unless they had to. They would not destroy unless there was no other choice. They would be better. They had to be better. Because if they were not, there would be nothing left. Just dust and silence. In the years that followed, the Valkyr spread their warning across the galaxy. Other species heard it. Some laughed. Some doubted. Some wanted to test the humans for themselves. But none of them did. Because the Valkyr had seen something that made them afraid. And when a species as powerful as the Valkyr was afraid, others listened. The galaxy learned to leave Earth alone. Not because they understood humanity. Not because they trusted humanity. But because they respected what humanity had built. And they feared what humanity would do if pushed. So they stayed away. They traded with humans when it was profitable. They allied with humans when it was necessary. But they never threatened them. They never pushed them. They never made them afraid. And humanity waited. They built their ships. They trained their soldiers. They maintained their network. They watched the stars and waited for the day when someone would test them again. They hoped that day would never come. But they were ready for it. They would always be ready. Admiral Elena Cross grew old. She retired from the Defense Force. She wrote a book about the Valkyr encounter. She gave speeches about the importance of restraint. She told young officers that the greatest weapon was not the one that destroyed. It was the one that never had to be used. She died peacefully, in her bed, with the sun rising over the ocean she had loved since she was a child. Her last words were simple. Keep watching. Keep waiting. Be ready. But hope you never have to be. And humanity did. They kept watching. They kept waiting. They stayed ready. And the galaxy, for once, left them alone. Not because they were weak, but because they were strong enough to choose peace. And that, perhaps, was the most dangerous thing of all.